What if the most dangerous thing happening to your brain right now is something you barely notice? No noise, no injury, no warning signs, just silence, isolation. Across the world, millions of people are spending more time alone than at any point in human history. And while isolation is often described as an emotional experience, neuroscience tells a much darker story. Because isolation doesn't just affect how you feel, it changes how your brain works, how it thinks, how it reacts, and how it sees the world. If you care about understanding your mind, protecting your mental health, and learning what's really happening inside your brain, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps this message reach people who may need it more than they realize. In this video, we're uncovering the hidden neuroscience of loneliness. We'll explore how isolation quietly rewires your brain circuits, why loneliness leads to emotional numbness and constant overthinking, how long-term isolation reshapes behavior and personality, and whether the brain can truly recover once connection has been lost. Stay until the end, because what you'll learn may explain feelings you've carried for years without understanding why. The brain is a social organ. The human brain is not an independent system. It evolved in groups, not in isolation. For most of human history, survival depended on cooperation, communication, shared danger, shared safety. As a result, the brain developed social circuitry, neural networks that expect regular interaction with other humans. When those networks go inactive for too long, the brain doesn't simply rest, it malfunctions. Isolation removes one of the brain's primary sources of regulation. Social interaction normally helps stabilize emotions, threat, perception, self-identity, motivation. Without it, the brain begins operating in an abnormal state. That's why isolation often feels disorienting rather than peaceful. Isolation as a survival threat. From a neurological perspective, isolation equals vulnerability. When the brain detects prolonged social absence, the amygdala, the brain's threat detection system, becomes more sensitive. This creates a constant low-level alarm state. Even without real danger, the brain stays alert. This leads to persistent unease, difficulty relaxing, heightened emotional reactions, feeling unsafe for no clear reason. Over time, the brain learns to expect threat everywhere. This is why isolated individuals often report, "I feel tense even when nothing is happening." Isolation teaches the brain that the world is unsafe. Dopamine dysregulation, why nothing feels rewarding. Dopamine plays a critical role in motivation, anticipation, pleasure, goal-directed behavior. Social interaction is one of dopamine's strongest natural triggers. Eye contact, conversation, shared laughter, recognition. Isolation removes these triggers. Over time, dopamine signaling weakens. This creates loss of interest, low drive, reduced curiosity, emotional flatness. Life starts to feel dull, not because nothing is happening, but because the brain no longer expects reward. This is why isolation is closely linked to depression, even without sadness. Oxytocin deprivation, the brain without safety. Oxytocin is essential for trust, bonding, emotional safety, social confidence. It's released during real human presence, especially face-to-face interaction and touch. Isolation drastically reduces oxytocin activity. Without it, the brain becomes defensive. This causes increased emotional distance, difficulty trusting others, heightened sensitivity to rejection, avoidance of closeness. The longer isolation lasts, the more the brain adapts to being alone, by closing itself off. Eventually, connection feels unfamiliar and uncomfortable. Overthinking, rumination, and the default mode. Network isolation gives the brain too much time with itself. The default mode network, responsible for internal thought, becomes overactive. This leads to replaying past mistakes, imagining negative futures, harsh self-criticism, endless mental loops. Without social grounding, the brain loses external reference points. Thoughts become louder, more repetitive, more negative. This is why isolation often leads to intense overthinking at night. The brain turns inward and doesn't know how to stop. How isolation affects memory, focus, and thinking. Social interaction stimulates cognitive systems, conversation exercises, memory language, attention, emotional interpretation. Isolation removes this stimulation. Over time, this can result in brain fog, forgetfulness, difficulty concentrating, slower thinking. This is not aging. This is understimulation. The brain is like a muscle. Unused circuits weaken. Emotional regulation, breakdown. The prefrontal cortex helps control emotional reactions. Social interaction naturally strengthens this area by providing feedback, perspective, and emotional calibration. Isolation weakens it. This leads to emotional volatility, increased irritability, reduced patience, difficulty managing stress. Small problems feel overwhelming. Emotions feel heavier. The brain loses its ability to self-regulate effectively. Digital isolation. Connected but unfulfilled. Modern isolation isn't always physical. You can be constantly online and still neurologically isolated. Digital interaction lacks physical presence, emotional synchrony, shared physiological cues. The brain recognizes this difference. Scrolling stimulates attention, but not bonding. This creates emotional hunger, comparison, driven insecurity, feeling invisible despite engagement. Digital connection keeps the brain busy, but not nourished. Long-term brain adaptations to isolation. When isolation becomes chronic, the brain adapts. It prioritizes self-protection, emotional withdrawal, reduced expectations. This can slowly alter personality, social confidence, emotional openness. The brain learns to survive alone, but at a cost. Can the brain recover from isolation? Here's the hopeful truth. The brain is plastic. Connection can rebuild what isolation weakens. Even limited, consistent interaction can reactivate reward circuits, calm threat systems, improve emotional regulation. The brain doesn't need crowds. It needs meaningful presence. Healing starts small, but it starts. Isolation is not a personal failure. It's a biological signal. If this video helped you understand your mind, like the video, subscribe for more brain and mental health content. Comment: has isolation changed how you think or feel? You're not broken.